Right now, the world is holding its breath. In the last 24 hours, major conflicts have taken a violent and dangerous turn. From brutal street fighting in Ukraine to new escalations in the Middle East and rising military tensions in the Americas. We're breaking down the critical updates you need right now. This isn't a drill. The ground is shifting in real time as front lines change, economies strain, and the specter of a wider war looms larger than it has in decades. We are seeing a perfect storm of military, political, and humanitarian crises that demand our full attention. Stay with us as we get straight to the facts and provide the content you won't find anywhere else. We begin in Eastern Europe on day 1,350 of Russia's full scale invasion of Ukraine, where the battle for a key city is reaching a bloody climax. Ukraine, the battle for Pokrovsk, and Putin's nuclear threats. The situation on the ground in eastern Ukraine has become critical. The city of Pokrovsk, a vital logistics and railway hub, is now the scene of intense urban warfare. Russian forces, after a long and grueling campaign, have managed to push the city's northern edges, engaging in brutal house to house fighting. Moscow is urging the remaining Ukrainian troops to surrender, a grim warning as its forces try to gain a foothold. Ukrainian military sources report that their troops are holding their positions amidst relentless bombardment. But the situation is described by multiple outlets as critical and extremely dangerous. Independent military analysis confirmed that Russian forces have advanced on the outskirts of Pokrovsk, with small infiltration units being spotted deep inside the city. In response, Ukraine has deployed special forces in a desperate bid to halt the Russian advance. While the battle hangs precariously in the balance, Kiev's general staff denies that its units are surrounded and insists that countermeasures are underway to stop the Russian forces. The human cost of this war is devastating. Overnight, Russian drone and missile strikes have claimed the lives of at least 5 civilians across Ukraine, adding to a death toll that climbs with each passing hour. As the ground war rages, a far more ominous threat is reemerging. In Moscow, President Vladimir Putin has ordered officials to prepare proposals for the possible resumption of nuclear weapon testing, citing unspecified actions by the United States. This is a move designed to escalate nuclear signaling. The announcement follows recent confirmation that Russia has used its 9M729 missile, also known as the SSC 8, in strikes against Ukraine. This is the very missile whose deployment led to the collapse of the landmark Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty back in 2019. And its use on a battlefield has sent shockwaves through Western capitals. NATO and its allies have responded with alarm, warning that any return to nuclear testing would shatter a global moratorium that has held for decades. Putin, however, appears undeterred, recently boasting about the development of a next generation nuclear powered cruise missile, the Oreshnik, which he claims has nearly unlimited range. Despite the Kremlin's nuclear posturing, international support for Ukraine remains strong. Germany recently announced plans to increase its financial aid to Ukraine by an additional $3 billion for 2026, reinforcing its position as Europe's single largest backer of Kiev's defense. The package is expected to fund more artillery, drones, and crucial replacements for Patriot air defense systems. Ukraine has also received additional Patriot systems, bolstering its shield against the daily barrage of Russian missiles and drones. So, what's the strategic calculus of this war? According to Western intelligence estimates, the Russian military has suffered staggering losses, with casualties believed to be in the hundreds of thousands. While Ukraine's Ministry of Finance has released its own much higher figures, the sheer scale of the losses on both sides underscores the brutal, attritional reality on the Eastern Front. Top NATO officials assess that Russia is facing immense strategic difficulties, citing unsustainable losses of personnel and equipment, coupled with an economy crumbling under the weight of sanctions. The question now is how a cornered Kremlin will react, and whether its nuclear threats are just rhetoric or a prelude to something much worse. Gaza, a deepening crisis. Turning now to the Middle East, where the conflict in Gaza continues to spiral. Hopes for a stable peace have been repeatedly dashed. In the latest flare up, Israeli forces killed 2 Palestinians in central Gaza, alleging they had crossed a boundary near Israeli positions. These deaths are part of a brutal cycle of violence, with recent Israeli strikes killing over 100 Palestinians. An Israeli minister was blunt, stating the war isn't over because Hamas will not willingly disarm. Amidst the fighting, delicate negotiations continue. Hamas recently handed over the body of a deceased Israeli captive as part of a complex exchange process. At the same time, the Israeli Defense Forces are repeatedly focused on clearing the sprawling tunnel networks beneath Gaza, where Hamas fighters are believed to be trapped. While some reports have suggested a specific number of fighters are cornered, these figures remain unconfirmed. Rare media access to parts of Gaza City has revealed a landscape of utter devastation. After more than 2 years of intense conflict, entire neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble. The scale of destruction is hard to comprehend. The United Nations reports that more than half of all structures in the Gaza Strip have been damaged or destroyed. The human toll is even more stark. The vast majority of Gaza's population is displaced, living as a refugee in their own land amid the ruins. The humanitarian crisis is dire. Aid delivery remains severely restricted in most areas, with critical supplies of food, water, and medicine unable to reach those in desperate need. This blockade persists despite international calls for access. The situation is made even more volatile by internal dynamics. With its military capabilities weakened, Hamas is reportedly cracking down on internal dissent, suppressing protests from a population exhausted by war and deprivation. This reflects a desperate attempt by the group to maintain control, creating an unpredictable environment with no clear path to resolution. America's tension rise between the U.S. and Venezuela. Meanwhile, in the Western Hemisphere, a war of words between the United States and Venezuela has escalated, sparking regional anxiety. Initial unverified reports of direct U.S. strikes on Venezuelan targets were proven false, but the underlying situation remains tense. What is confirmed is a notable U.S. military presence in the Caribbean, which we've reported on before and will continue to do so. However, officially, it is aimed at countering drug trafficking. However, the scale of this deployment has been described by critics as far exceeding a typical counter narcotics mission, leading the government of Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro, to view it as a direct threat. Some U.S. lawmakers have voiced concerns about the risk of miscalculation. President Maduro has accused Washington of using the drug war as a pretext for regime change, aiming to seize control of Venezuela's vast oil reserves. This rhetoric has resonated with other left leaning governments in Latin America, reflecting the widespread anxiety. Trinidad and Tobago's government has been in active contact with the U.S. Embassy and has issued an alert recalling military personnel to their bases. While U.S. officials have publicly downplayed the likelihood of war, the combination of military posturing and aggressive rhetoric from both sides has created a tense standoff in the Caribbean. Global Roundup, other hotspots to watch. Beyond these major fronts, other global hotspots continue to simmer. Along with the mountainous border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, tensions remain perilously high following a series of deadly cross border clashes. Pakistan's defense minister has issued a stark warning of open war if peace talks fail to stop attacks from militant groups. In Europe, German authorities have foiled an alleged anti-Semitic plot, arresting a man accused of promising to supply weapons for attacks on Jewish targets, a chilling reminder of how extremist violence can be fueled by distant conflicts. And in Africa, Washington is closely monitoring escalating violence in Nigeria. After a series of remarks from the U.S. president, the Pentagon has repeatedly or reportedly been asked to develop contingency plans, signaling growing international concern over the insurgency and instability plaguing Africa's most populous nation. From the trenches of Pokrovsk to the rubble of Gaza and the tense waters of the Caribbean, November 5th and 6th, 2025 marks a day of profound global instability. The threads connecting these conflicts are numerous: superpower rivalries, economic pressures, and the devastating proliferation of advanced weapons. We're not just observing isolated crises. We are witnessing an interconnected web of escalations, where an event in one corner of the world can have immediate consequences in another. In each of these hotspots, the line between a contained crisis and a wider war is growing thinner by the day. This situation continues to develop rapidly. To stay on top of the latest breaking news and analysis from these global front lines, make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support allows us to continue providing this critical, independent coverage. Thank you for watching, and more importantly, stay informed.